It was the early 1980s, and Nicaragua was in the throes of a revolution. The U.S.-backed Contras were endeavoring to oust the communistic Sandinista government. The church was under heavy persecution. But along the Nicaragua-Honduran border in a little town called Salamají, a young man by the name of Julio Villarena was discontent with his Catholic faith. When he was 30 years old, Julio saw a painting of Christ's baptism and asked his Catholic catechist why the church baptized infants when Jesus was baptized as an adult. The catechist ignored his question. Several weeks later, a Christian pastor knocked on Julio's door. He was evangelizing in the community and wanted to talk to Julio and his family about salvation. Julio took advantage of the opportunity to ask the same question to the evangelical pastor. Why was Jesus baptized as an adult? The pastor began to explain, using scriptures, the meaning of baptism and why Jesus was baptized as an adult and not as a child. This only sparked Julio's hunger for truth and soon led to his conversion. Upon his conversion, he joined other families who had converted in his village for worship services in their homes. Even in the midst of war, bloodshed, and persecution, revival fires were breaking out in Julio's village. There was no established church and no missionary to train these new believers. Night after night, Julio and a group of 15 to 20 other young people gathered together after the service to study the Bible. Before beginning their study, they prayed and asked the Holy Spirit to teach them. The Bible would then be randomly opened and verses shown in gold. They would read the shining golden verse and discuss its meaning. Then they would randomly open the Bible again to another book and chapter, only to find another verse related to the topic of discussion, shining in gold. Each night, the Holy Spirit supernaturally guided them through the Scriptures, teaching them and discipling them on different doctrinal topics. As Julio grew in his faith, he felt an increasing burden to start a church. Land was donated, and a small church was built. A man who had been saved in HIM's Spanish church in West Palm Beach, Florida, had returned to Nicaragua and told Julio about the mission. A friendship soon began between Julio and Sidney Grant, which eventually led to Julio's church joining Hope International Missions. Julio continues to pastor. He has since started another church and a preaching point. He is also the Nicaraguan field director. God works in miraculous ways, His wonders to perform.
Giving to missions is very important. We as missionaries couldn't survive if we didn't have a support base behind us, giving and praying. But how you give is just as important. Here in Central America, we have been developing small businesses and farms to help support our ministry way beyond our years. We've seen across the history of missions, many missionaries went with the idea that they were in control of everything. They were the grandfather of all that was happening. But when those missionaries felt like it was time to move on, or when they passed away, all that they had built and all that they had invested in fell away with them. We don't want to do that here. We want to set up our pastors, our churches for success. We want small businesses that will help support them, even if we're here or whether we're gone. So in Nicaragua, for example, we have the Coco River Ranch, a beautiful place settled here in the hills of Segovia. HIM has been strategically investing into this property, starting a farm. We have several cows already, 6, 7 cows, and lots of crops. And they've cleared a good portion of the front part of this property to be able to grow things for their animals. So this is one way that you can strategically give. This is a project that will outlive us and outgive us. They've already built an adobe house here on the property. A man by the name of Freddie is kind of the hired hand who's managing the property. He's the one milking the cows and putting up the fence and clearing the property off. And it's just been a real blessing to have him working here. They have some crops over here in the front part of the yard. They got some sugar cane coming on and a few other things. They have a pen over there they're going to be putting their chickens in. The farm provides many opportunities to generate funds. One of the plans that they have is to grow tomatoes, grow onions, plant lots of other crops like corn and things like that that they can sell in the market, and also provides food for their families. With the cows, they'll be using the milk to sell and also making cheese. All of this helps the mission and the pastors to be less dependent upon U.S. funds. The more that happens, the more fruitful and successful they will be. This is one way, a very successful way, to support our pastors long-term, whether we're here or not. There is that infrastructure and there's that support system that they have for years and years to come. We're on the hike back from the Cocoa River Ranch. It was a great time, and it's great to see what God's been doing there and how things are growing and expanding. But as I've been thinking about that farm and the importance of self-sustainment, this past few months here in Nicaragua, there was a lot of uprising, a lot of turmoil. University students began to demand that President Daniel Ortega leave office after being in power for years. His wife is the vice president. The government is very corrupt. During those months of uprising and turmoil, the government began cracking down on any kind of resources coming in from outside of the country. It actually became even more difficult to send funds to support Pastor Julio and the other ministries here. With that in mind, it reminds us just how important it is to have projects like this. We have no idea when countries will close or when new people will take power with different mentalities and different mindsets. We need to be prepared for those moments. And these kind of projects, when the doors close on these nations, will continue to help our pastors in their work continue forward. Every dime and dollar that you invest in farms, and small businesses, and things like that in our different fields helps to keep a bright future for missions and keeps the doors open for the gospel message. In Honduras, our initial project has been Oliver's Pig Farm. We had a donor in the United States who heard about our desire to help support our pastors by starting a pig farm. Sam Lacates has funded this entire project in memory of his grandfather, Oliver Lacates, who was a good Christian man, an honest businessman, and he was also a pig farmer. Sam has helped us to start a project that has been a huge blessing, not just for our pastor, Roberto, but for the entire village of Las Delicias. Our water well has been the first small business started here on the farm that's been generating income. Here in the village, they had no running water. Families were getting their water from contaminated streams and ponds. The bad water was causing a lot of sickness, parasite problems, and the people were desperate to have clean running water in their homes. A well was already needed to be drilled to have on our farm, but we also thought, maybe we could sell water to the village. Once the people heard about this project, they were excited. Thankfully, God gave us a good, strong well that is producing a tremendous amount of water. Many families paid to have water lines installed to their houses, and now they pay us a monthly water bill. And they are so thankful. The clean water has helped to raise the standard of living. This is going to be our main project here for this farm. We have several little cubicles here, and we've made them deeper than usual because of a kind of a neat system that we're going to use for the pig waste. We have these guys putting in a layer of ash on the bottom that'll give us about 2 inches of ash. On top of the ash goes another layer of pieces of wood, and then on top of that goes about 2 feet of sawdust. And all of that will just absorb and help break down the pig waste. And after about 7 or 8 months of that, all of that will be organic fertilizer that we can use for our crops, our corn, beans, all of that stuff. So we don't want to waste anything, really. We want to use it. Some of the other things on the farm that's going to help us make some money are things like crops, corn. We have beans growing over here. Around the perimeter of the farm, they've planted banana trees. And some of that's going to be sold, but also a good portion of this will be used for our own pig feed and the sustainment here of the farm. We're nearing completion of the pig barn and just getting started on raising pigs. We plan to farrow, which means we will mainly focus on the production of litters and then raise the piglets until about 3 months and sell those to other farmers who are wanting to fatten pigs. There will be fewer feed costs, quicker returns on our investment by doing it that way. If the business does well, we have lots of room for expansion and future barns. These kind of small businesses will help to supplement Roberto's income. This is a farming community. It's very poor. The family struggled to completely support a pastor. If this model is successful, we hope to set up these kinds of farms in other places as our works continue to grow. You, the churches and donors who are giving and praying for missions around the world, play a vital role in fulfilling the Great Commission. Your giving and prayers are what keeps missions moving forward, conquering territory from the enemy. But what exactly are you supporting? Are you giving to projects that are fostering a welfare-type system where the churches and nationals become completely dependent upon U.S. funds? What will happen to that ministry once the missionary ends his or her ministry to that country? Do not allow your giving to harm and hinder God's work. Do not allow your giving to stymie the creativity and motivation of the nationals. Give in such a way that empowers the nationals, stimulates them to work, challenges them to take ownership, and pushes them to be creative. Make your money work for God. Give strategically by investing in the kinds of projects that will help the nationals run a self-supporting ministry. It's like the saying goes, give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. We want to teach our people to fish, not just hand them a fish every day. Dependency will stifle or even kill the mission work. Creating opportunities for self-motivation and self-support will lay the foundation for a strong and successful mission work.